By the 1950s, as the shiny new supermarket spread across America, the food industry had a brand new message for the black grandmother who had fed her family for decades. Your old ways are backward, even dangerous, and better to buy your food in a can with our name on it. It was one of the most successful sales pitches in history, and it was aimed squarely at making us forget what our grandmothers already knew, because here is the truth they would rather you not sit with. Long before that store existed, a black grandmother with a stone crock, a little salt, some vinegar, and a cool dark corner could keep a whole year's worth of food, meat, milk, eggs, and the entire garden without a refrigerator, without a factory, without a single thing bought off a shelf. A woman like that does not need the grocery store at all. And a woman who does not need you is very bad for business. Number 12 on this list is how our grandmothers kept eggs fresh for nearly a year with no refrigerator at all. And number 4 is how they turned the one part of the hog everybody else threw away into a delicacy that kept for weeks. These were not poverty tricks. They were mastery, a quiet independence the store spent a fortune teaching us to forget. So before we begin, take a second and subscribe, because this is our inheritance, and it is worth far more than they ever wanted you to know. Number 20, letting cabbage sour into kraut. Our grandmothers knew a secret modern science only recently caught up to. You can preserve a vegetable by letting the right kind of spoiling take over. Shredded cabbage, a good handful of salt, packed tight in a crock under its own brine, left to sour for weeks. And what came out was tangy, crisp, and good for months, alive with the very bacteria that keep a body well. The store sells you a dead, vinegar-drowned version in a bag and calls it the same thing. It isn't. Real fermented kraut is now celebrated as a gut health powerhouse, the original probiotic, full of the living cultures a sealed factory jar can never give you. Our grandmothers were brewing living medicine in a crock on the porch, generations before anyone sold it back to us. Number 19, pickling in a brine, not a boil. Most folks think pickling means a hot jar and a vinegar bath, but our grandmothers also pickled the old way. Cucumbers, green beans, even watermelon rind, submerged in a simple saltwater brine and left to sour naturally into deep, complex, sour pickles no factory can match. No canning, no cooking, just salt, water, time, and patience. The store-bought pickle is a shadow of it, flavorless and lifeless by comparison. Brine fermented pickles are prized again now by chefs and health folks alike, sold at a premium our grandmothers would have found comical. A barrel of cucumbers became a year of crisp, living food with nothing but salt and the wisdom to wait, and the sour snap of a real crock pickle is something the store has simply never sold. Number 18, putting up the whole garden as chow chow. When the first frost threatened and the garden gave its last, the green tomatoes, the odd peppers, the last of the cabbage and beans, nothing was left to rot. Our grandmothers chopped it all together into chow chow, a tangy spice relish put up in jars that would brighten a plate of beans or greens all the long winter through. It was the genius of using everything, of letting nothing the earth gave go to waste. The store would rather sell you 12 different condiments in 12 different bottles. Our grandmothers made one glorious jar out of whatever was left. That waste nothing relish is a treasured Southern tradition to this day, and a single spoonful could carry a plain winter plate. Number 17, keeping a pepper sauce on the table all year. On nearly every black grandmother's table sat a bottle, hot peppers packed into vinegar, sharp and fiery, splashed over greens and peas and whatever needed waking up. That vinegar pulled the heat and the goodness out of the peppers and kept them usable for a year or more, and when the bottle ran low, you just topped it off with more vinegar and kept it going. One small bottle, endless seasoning, almost no cost. The store sells you a new bottle every time. Our grandmothers kept one alive on the table for years. Pepper vinegar is a cherished heirloom of Southern black cooking, handed down bottle and recipe alike, and it still beats anything on the shelf. Number 16, growing their own vinegar. Here is the one that ties so many others together. Vinegar itself, our grandmothers often made. Apple peels and cores, or any fruit going soft, covered with water and left to work, would turn first to a cider and then to vinegar, the very acid they used to pickle, to make pepper sauce, to keep meat and eggs. They grew their own preservatives out of what most people throw in the trash. The store would never tell you that the thing in aisle 9 starts with garbage and time. Homemade vinegar, with its living mother, is treasured again by every fermenter today. Our grandmothers made the keeper of the whole pantry out of scraps and patience and never paid a cent for it. Number 15, locking summer into a jar of preserves. Notice what every one of these first secrets has in common: salt, vinegar, thyme, and a crock, and out of those humble things, food that lasts. There is no factory in this story, no chemical you can't pronounce, no monthly trip to the store. Our grandmothers held the whole science of keeping food in their own hands and their own kitchens, and that is exactly the knowledge an industry built on your dependence would most like you to forget, because the moment you can preserve your own food, their hold on your table loosens. Our people never let it loosen its grip on them. Let us keep going. When the fruit came ripe all at once, our grandmothers caught it before it could spoil by cooking it down with sugar into preserves, spoons, and jellies. Peaches, figs, blackberries, muscadines, sealed sweet and bright to be opened in the dead of winter. A spoonful of July on a cold gray morning. Sugar was the lock, and the jar was the key held until you needed it. The store sells you fruit shipped from across the world, picked green and gassed ripe. Our grandmothers tasted summer all year from their own trees. Small batch preserves are now a craft people pay dearly for at the farmer's market. Ours simply called it putting up the fruit, and the smell of it bubbling on the stove meant winter would be sweet. Number 14, making a delicacy out of the rind. This is the genius the store could never teach. Our grandmothers preserved the part everybody else threw away. The thick white rind of the watermelon, peeled, soaked, and simmered slow with sugar, ginger, and lemon until it turned clear and candy sweet, became watermelon rind preserves, a delicacy out of what most folks tossed to the hogs. Nothing was beneath saving, and nothing was wasted. The grocery store is built on convenience and on waste. Our grandmothers were built on the opposite. That rind preserve is a proud Southern heirloom recipe today. They took what others called the trash of the table and made it the sweetest thing in the whole pantry. Number 13, putting fruit up in spirits. For a special preserve, our grandmothers had another trick. Fruit dropped into a jar with sugar and a little liquor, sealed away to steep for months into something rich, boozy, and long-lasting. The cherries, the peaches, the figs ready for a celebration or a winter's day. The alcohol kept it sound. The time made it glorious. It was patience turned into luxury. The store sells you a sad jar of maraschino cherries full of dye. Our grandmothers made the real thing in their own cupboards. Brandied and spirited fruit is a celebrated delicacy on fine menus now, and ours did it long before it had a fancy name or a fancy price. Number 12, keeping eggs fresh for nearly a year. This is the one I tease, and it sounds impossible. With no refrigerator, our grandmothers kept eggs fresh for the better part of a year by sealing them, unwashed, down in a crock of lime water or water glass, which closed up the shell's pores and locked the freshness inside. Eggs laid in the spring were still good come the cold of winter when the hens had stopped laying. The store wants you buying a dozen every week. Our grandmothers stocked a whole year from a good spring of laying. Homesteaders are rediscovering this very method right now and amazed that it works. Our grandmothers banked their eggs like money in the spring, so the winter table never went without. Number 11, braiding the harvest to hang and keep. Onions, garlic, peppers, even some herbs. Our grandmothers knew these had to be cured before they'd keep, dried down in the air until the skins went papery, then braided into long plaits and hung from the rafters where the air moved. Done right, that braid of onions or garlic would last clear through the winter, a pantry hanging from the ceiling. The store keeps it all in cold cases and sells it by the each. Our grandmothers grew a year's seasoning and hung it overhead. Braided alliums are sold as rustic decor now, the wisdom forgotten. Our people knew it as the simplest food storage there is, a year of flavor swaying gently overhead. Stop and feel the rhythm in all of this, because it runs by the seasons, not the store hours. The fruit comes ripe, you put it up. The garden gives its last, you make the chow chow. The hens lay heavy in spring, you bank the eggs for winter. Our grandmothers lived in a yearly cycle of catching abundance and saving it against scarcity, so the pantry was always full no matter the month. The grocery store erased that rhythm and replaced it with a weekly trip and a constant bill. But the seasons still turn exactly as they always did, and the old wisdom still works exactly as it always has. Let us keep going. Number 10, turning soured milk into food on purpose. Before refrigeration, fresh milk was going to sour, so our grandmothers made the souring work for them. Left in a crock in a warm spot, fresh milk thickened into clabber, a tangy, custardy food eaten with sugar or cornbread, or churned and baked with. They didn't fight the spoiling. They guided it into something good and good for you. The store taught us to fear any milk that turns and to pour it down the drain. Our grandmothers turned it into supper, clabber, and cultured milk are the ancestors of every yogurt and probiotic drink sold today. They were culturing their own gut-healthy food long before the dairy aisle existed or sold it back to us at a premium. Number 9, making cheese from the clabber. And when the milk had clabbered, our grandmothers took it a step further, draining the curds in a cloth, pressing out the whey, and making a simple farmer's cheese or hoop cheese that kept far longer than the milk ever could. A surplus of milk that would have spoiled by Tuesday became cheese that lasted for weeks. Nothing wasted, everything stretched. The store sells you cheese wrapped in plastic, made in a plant 1,000 miles away. Our grandmothers made it in a cloth bag hung over the sink. Fresh handmade cheese is an artisan luxury now, sold by the ounce. Ours was just Thursday's answer to too much milk, and not one drop was lost. Number 8, keeping butter sweet without a fridge. Butter goes rancid fast in the heat, so our grandmothers kept it 2 clever ways. They pack it down hard into a crock and pour a cool salt brine over the top to seal it from the air, or sink the covered crock into the cool of the well or spring. Either way, the butter stayed sweet for weeks or months with no ice at all. The store keeps it cold for you and charges you accordingly. Our grandmothers kept it themselves for almost nothing. Salt brined and well-kept butter is a trick homesteaders treasure again today. Our people understood that a little salt and a cool, dark place could do the work of a machine that hadn't even been invented yet. Number 7, salting fish to last without ice. Where there was a river, a creek, or a coast, our people pulled fish, more than could be eaten before it spoiled, so they salted it, packing the cleaned fish in salt and letting it cure and dry until it would keep for months with no refrigeration, ready to be soaked and cooked into something rich whenever it was needed. Salt fish fed families through lean times and became the heart of beloved dishes across the Black South and the Caribbean. The store flies in fresh fish on ice and charges a fortune. Our grandmothers made the catch last a season with nothing but salt. That salt fish tradition became the heart of beloved dishes and is cherished cooking to this day. Number 6, curing meat in a brine. Apart from the smokehouse, our grandmothers had the wet cure, submerging meat in a big crock of brine made of salt. a little sugar, and water, weighted down and kept cool until the salt drew out what would spoil it and the meat would keep for the long haul. It's the same principle behind corned beef and every fine cured meat you've ever paid good money for. The store sells you the finished product at a steep markup and never tells you how simple it began. Our grandmothers cured a whole winter's meat in a crock in the corner. Brine curing is a celebrated craft again, taught in expensive classes, and ours were masters of it for free. We are getting close to the top now, and the secrets are getting bolder, keeping eggs for a year, milk into cheese, meat in a crock of brine. And I want you to really hear the thread running through every single one. Our grandmothers were not just cooking. They were running a whole food system out of one kitchen, producing, preserving, and storing season to season with no outside help and no outside costs. That is food sovereignty, the thing people march and write books about now. Our grandmothers simply lived it every day with a crock and a prayer. Let us bring it home. Number 5, stretching the brine to the whole hog. When the hog was killed, our grandmothers wasted nothing, and the brine and the vinegar crock were how the odd pieces were kept. The trimmings, the less noble cuts, the bits that couldn't be smoked or cured whole were pickled and packed away in vinegar and salt to last for weeks, turning every last scrap of the animal into food that kept. It was the deepest respect for the life that fed the family. The store sells you the easy cuts wrapped in plastic and grinds the rest away out of sight. Our grandmothers honored the whole animal, all the way down. That nose-to-tail thrift is praised as enlightened, costly eating now. Ours called it not wasting and meant it as respect. Number 4, making a delicacy of the hog's head. This is the one I promised you. The head of the hog, the part most people couldn't imagine eating, our grandmothers turned into souse, also called head cheese. The meat slow simmered until it fell from the bone, seasoned hard with vinegar, pepper, and spice, then packed tight and left to set into a firm, tangy loaf held together by its own natural gel. The vinegar preserved it, and it kept for weeks, sliced cold whenever you needed it. From the part everyone else threw away, our grandmothers made something prized at the table. The store would never. That Souse tradition is a proud, defiant piece of Black foodway history, served at gatherings with no apology. Nothing, and no one, was beneath saving. Number 3, drying the seasoning the garden gave. Beyond the big harvest, our grandmothers preserved the small things that made the food sing. Sage, thyme, and mint tied in bunches and hung to dry. Hot pepper strung on a thread into a long red shum to dry by the stove. Sassafras and herbs dried for tea and tonic. A summer's worth of flavor and medicine captured to last all winter, costing nothing but a little air and stream. The store sells you a tiny jar of tired dried herbs for the price of a meal. Our grandmothers dried a year's seasoning from the garden by the door. Drying your own herbs is the easiest preservation there is, costs nothing, and has never once stopped working. Number 2, wasting absolutely nothing. By now you felt the principle beneath every secret on this list, the one our grandmothers lived as faithfully as scripture. Waste nothing. The peel became the vinegar, the rind became the preserve, the souring milk became the cheese, the hog's head became the souse, the last of the garden became the relish. Every scrap the earth and the animal gave was caught and kept and turned into something that lasted, because in their world, waste was a danger a family could not afford. The grocery store runs on the opposite, on convenience, on excess, on throwing away. Our grandmothers ran on respect for every blessing, and the planet itself, drowning in what we throw away, is begging us to remember that wisdom now. Number 1, the full pantry was freedom. Here's the secret beneath all the secrets, the one the grocery store would least like you to understand. Every method on this list added up to one thing: a pantry our grandmothers filled with their own 2 hands, a shelf of jars and crocks and hanging braids that meant the family would eat no matter what came. A bad season, a lost job, a hard winter, a world that shut its doors in their faces. A full pantry with security no employer controlled and no store could switch off. It was very simply freedom. The freedom to feed your own people on your own terms, owing no one and asking no one's permission. That is why these skills were guarded and passed down so carefully, mother to daughter, in a time when our people were given so little else. And that is exactly why an industry that profits from your hunger and your dependence would rather you never learn a single one of them, but you come from people who knew how to keep themselves fed and free. The crock, the brine, the jar, the braid, that was never poverty, that was power. And it is still yours to pick back up. So here is my challenge to you, and it's a gentle one. Don't try to master all 20. Just take one this week. Start a small crock of kraut with nothing but cabbage and salt. Put up one jar of preserves from fruit you love, or keep a bottle of pepper vinegar on your own table, the way they kept it on theirs. One secret, pick back up. I'll be honest with you. The first time I made a jar of something with my own hands and watched it keep sitting full and bright on the shelf, I understood something about my grandmother I never had before. She wasn't just cooking, she was making sure we would never go without. And that knowing settled into me like a kind of strength. So tell me in the comments, what did your grandmother put up?